The outmanned Illini lose to the Badgers by 21 points. And at some point, we're going to have a conversation about Kasparas Jakucionis.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another, what I'm sure is going to be a lovely edition of Locked On Illini. My name, of course, is Sonny Verma. You can find me on all your favorite podcast channels, on your favorite social medias. Do a search for Locked On Illini. Send me a message, say hello. A lot of you have been bantering back and forth with me online, and I appreciate that. A lot of you, there's a lot of frustration. Can't say I have all the same amount of frustration after this game that I've had after others, but there's certainly a lot to talk about today. Let's just talk about the game. Okay, so we found out about 2 hours, no, not even, maybe a half hour before the game that Tommy Avicic was feeling sick. And if you're in the Locked On Illini Discord, you knew about this about 2 hours before the tip-off. I had gotten wind that something was wrong with Tommy. I let the folks in the Discord know that, and I was just like, hey, let's wait and see it. I can't report something like this, but let's just find out what happens. And sure enough, the availability report comes out. Morez Johnson Jr. out. Tommy Avicic questionable. And I'm just going to start with the positive because I know there's a lot of negative energy, and it's probably most of it is probably justified. But Tommy shouldn't have played today. He's been essentially throwing up nonstop for 36 hours straight. He didn't travel with the team to Madison. And Tommy only played because Illinois was so undermanned. He would not have played in any other game. And, I've talked about him before, my appreciation for him. The fact that somehow he was able to get 21 minutes, 7 points, and 3 rebounds shows that he really is the heart of this team. Because I know there's a certain player on this team that's not the heart of this basketball team. When we needed him to be, he was not. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. This Wisconsin basketball team is a very good one, right? I've been saying for a week straight that Wisconsin's going to drop 85 plus, and I think I even mentioned 90 in one of my pregame shows. They're a very efficient offense, and I'm going to give all the credit in the world to the Badgers team. But most of this game was spent with a 6 to 12 point deficit. And it's just one of those where Illinois just matches up really well against Wisconsin. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any sort of way. And maybe you guys agree with me, maybe you guys don't. But I wouldn't mind seeing Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament. I think we match up really, really well with them. It's just the fact that we're playing without Morez Johnson Jr. Avicic was a shell of himself. Jake Davis leaves the first half, and he never comes back. Why? Because he couldn't stop puking in the locker room. I don't know what it is with this team. There's like a month left of the season. Can you guys just lock yourselves in your dorms? Nobody, if you see an Illini player on Green Street, tell them, take a picture and shame them. I don't know what I know there's a bias that comes with this, but I've watched basketball for a very long time. And just the amount of, how do I even phrase it? Just bad luck that this team seems to be having over and over again. I mean, Tommy already was sick. He had mono, and then he just caught something else. And I know something's going around because I have. I apologize if I sound nasally. But Morez out, Tommy out. Today, for the most part, your healthiest player was 6'9". You're playing a small ball lineup. You started Jake Davis and Trey White. And Jake Davis played 8 minutes. Jake Davis is not a rebounder. And sure enough, you were out-rebounded today, 29 to 37. And it was apparent from the beginning of that game that you were going to get out-rebounded. This was just a size difference that Illinois just couldn't make up for. And again, it's one of those games where I know it's frustrating, and some of you are probably having the time of your life in that chat. But it was a 21-point loss, but for some reason, I was much more disappointed in that game against the way we lost to Michigan State, and a lot of the losses that we had earlier this year. This team today, they really didn't give up until maybe there was like 4 or 5 minutes left, and even then, they quite simply just ran out of energy. They just ran out of players. Kylan Boswell just continuing to making some of the most boneheaded decisions that someone playing in his third year of college basketball just simply should not be making. Illinois today shoots 10 for 30 from three-point land. I mean, they were shooting them. At the end, they obviously had to hoist a couple of those up there just to try to make up some ground. They didn't really go in. But it wasn't just a bad, necessarily three-point shooting night. But a lot of that has to do with Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not a good defensive team. And that's why I say again that if we were to meet them in the Big Ten tournament, I think that's a good matchup for Illinois. Hopefully. I mean, at this point, who knows who else is going to be out or injured or sick. But John Tanji was just too much. 10 points in that first half. He had 21 in that second half. 3 rebounds, shot 9 for 15, 10 of 12 from free throw land. He was just a guy that we couldn't stop, and we continued to decide not to double him, which I'm not surprised by. I know LaFonso Ellis was talking about how maybe you send 2 guys at Tanji, but he's the prototypical type of player that Illinois just won't double team. They'll let him score as long as nobody else scores. But problem is, Steve Crowell scored and Blackwell scored. Now, Crowell, he just took advantage of a depleted, injured, sick Avicic. A lot of those plays where he got really good positioning on Tommy would not have happened had Tommy been in, fully healthy. You can tell he looks weak. And again, I'm surprised he played. The only reason he played was because Illinois simply needed him. And, he had some good rebounds, a couple of and ones, some putbacks. And I thought for a while that maybe those would energize the rest of the team. Didn't quite happen that way. Trey White, 7 points, 5 rebounds. Again, I just need to question Brad here because Trey looked like a shell of himself too. And I can't help but think that today, for the first time, he looked a little mentally checked out. Like he didn't want to be there, that he was trying too hard, and not trying too hard, but that he just wasn't in the game plan, and that he's lost confidence. Ben, speaking of lost confidence, had a pretty decent game himself. 4 for 11 from field goals, 3 3-pointers today. Thought it was a solid game. I've said this about Ben, and I'll say it again. Ben Humrickhouse is a 15 to 18 minute player at this level. Not much more than that, but unfortunately, he was counted on to do more than that for Illinois, and that's where a lot of this frustration comes from. Let's get to an ad real quick, and I really want to talk about Kasparas. Where's he at? I'm sorry. All right. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now, Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Folks, I'm in a game where a lot of your best players are either out or sick. This was the type of game where you needed your best player to step up and be the guy. And there was no game script that Illinois could have won against Wisconsin at the Kohl Center without Kasparas going for 27 and 5. Kasparas today, in 24 minutes, finished with 6 points, 5 rebounds, 0 assists, and 7 turnovers. Again, I keep repeating myself on this. I feel like I've said this 3 times in the last 30 days. The worst game of Kasparas' career. I get it. He's a freshman, and there's not a big sample size. But let me put it this way. We saw the mock drafts early in the season where Kasparas was going top 3, top 5, top 10 lottery pick. He seems to be a consensus lottery pick. I'm a lifelong Chicago Bulls fan. And it looks like, I know, go ahead, take a second and feel sorry for me. Okay. The Bulls will probably pick anywhere from 8 to 11, 8 to 12 in this upcoming lottery. Me, as a Bulls fan, I don't want them to take Kasparas. He's a kid who is immensely talented, and we've seen it, but I just don't know if all of it is there. I don't know if the package is complete just yet. Some of the turnovers today were just, you would expect a walk-on to do. And quite honestly, who saw in this game? At one point, I think it was after his 5th or 6th turnover, Brad Underwood literally turned to the walk-on Kutcher to bring him in for Kasparas. Decided against it. But that's how frustrating Kasparas was today. Honestly, Illinois kept close most of this game. Thanks to DGL. Thanks to Will Riley. And again, Ben Hummerkaus had a solid game himself. What they needed was the guy. You know, what they needed was their Terrence Shannon Jr., their Braden Smith, their John Tanji. To say, just, at once in a while, when you're supposed to be the guy, you need to be able to put the team on your shoulders and let them know, hey, I got it. I got it. I got you. But Kasparas continues to do the same mistakes he made in the beginning of the season. He's trying to be playmaker, Kasparas Jakucionis, and not just, hey, I'm the best player on the court, Kasparas Jakucionis. We don't need the former, the earlier. We don't need a playmaker. You know what? The players you were throwing it to, they're injured, they're hurt, they're depleted. There's a difference in talent level between Wisconsin and Illinois. And now this is going to sound a little ironic with me saying after a 21-point loss. And you guys may agree with me or you may disagree with me. That's up to you guys. But the guys that Wisconsin have are a group of good college basketball players. I think Illinois, even today, you can see that guys like Will Riley, Kasparas, are on a slight different level. Even Tommy Ivisic, while he was sick, somehow grabbed 7 and 3. The ceiling is a lot different for both of these teams. But Kasparas, when he should have had his I'm him game. This should have been, hey, look, you know what? You guys are down and out. Everybody's counting Illinois out right now. I got you. I like what Will Riley was doing at the end of that first half. He's the only one who's putting his head down, attacking the rim, not getting any foul calls, but he never does for some reason. But he was trying. He was putting up more effort. Kasparas just, I'm starting to question the prospect that he is. We thought, and by we, I'm saying me, I'll hold myself accountable. Maybe you guys thought different. This was a top 10, top 15 player in the country. Right now, and answer honestly, and I want you to answer this honestly if you're not jaded by Kasparas, right? Like there's people who've turned on him as of late. I'm talking about the KJ supporters. Right now, if you had 5 minutes to submit your all Big Ten team, is KJ your first teamer? I don't think I can't even come up with an argument to put him on the first team. Second team, third team, yeah, absolutely. He deserves to be on the all Big Ten team. But early in the year, it looked like he was going to be a lock for first team He looked like he could contend for an All-American spot. But in a game where you needed your best player to be the best player on the court, Kasparas shot 2 for 3. 0 for 1 from three-point land. Just unacceptable. 24 minutes, 4 fouls. And him fouling out probably would have been the best thing for Illinois. Teammate Kyler Boswell, not much better. 7, 1, and 2. I mean, thanks for putting something up on the scoreboard today. Jake Davis, again, 6 points, 2 of 4 from three-point land. He made those 2 early, and I thought I had that glimmer of hope. But, of course, he gets sick. He leaves. But, again, I want the focus to be on Kasparas because I'm flabbergasted right now. I know, I think that's where my biggest frustration comes from today. It's all year long, I've been clamoring for the Robin to Kasparas' Batman, saying, hey, we need the Marcus Damask to last year's Terrence Shannon Jr. Will Riley has stepped up. Problem is, and, again, this is the post-game show, right? My everydayers in here. By the way, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button. We're at 110 people in here, and let's say 22 likes. Come on, let's get that up. Get the likes up for the effort at least, okay? I know we don't like the final result, but the guys out there really tried. We know Will Riley stepping up into a really solid all-around second player. But I'm losing faith by the game on Kasparas being that best player on the court from here on out. Is he capable of it? Sure, we've seen it. But that's just like this Illinois team. We've seen them blow teams out by 30. But those games are becoming the exceptions now, as opposed to the norm. Kasparas today at 6 points, 5 rebounds. I can't say this enough. 3 shots. 3 shots on a day where the team needed him. The coaching staff needed him. All of Illini Nation needed him to just, and again, not even disappears. Not like he didn't have a bad game. He just disappeared. He was legit the worst player on that court today. I can't believe I'm saying that because you know what? Kasparas is not sick. He's not hurt. There's no excuse to fall back on when it comes to KJ. He just flat out stunk. And I can't wait to see what Brad Underwood says in this post-game press conference about KJ. Because, again, there's no excuse. Like, he's been given the minutes. He's just bad. He's just bad. Let's get to some of your thoughts after this. I'm sure this is going to be fun. As you can see, my voice is leaving me because I am also a little sick. So I don't know how long I'll be going on today, but let's get to some of your thoughts before I let you guys go. And again, let me know who's your player of the game. All right. Actually, I think it's a consensus, right? Player of the game for me, Dre Gibbs Lawhorn. Why hasn't Dre Gibbs Lawhorn? Why wasn't he starting today? Brad, why'd you have Jake Davis and Trey White? Now, don't get me wrong. I wanted Trey White to play more minutes, right? You guys who are my everydayers saw me in the last 2 episodes I've released on Lockdown Illini. I say Trey White has to play 20 minutes. He shouldn't be starting. If you're down that many men, how's Will Riley not starting? How's DGL not starting? Guess who your 2 best players were today? DGL and Will Riley. How they were not in the starting lineup at some point. You have to reward the effort and the results. And I like Jake Davis. Sign me up for the Jake Davis fan club. He's going to be a huge asset to our team next year. He's a good 8th, 9th guy on your roster this year. He should not be starting the game. Your best chance at winning today was Kasparas and Will Riley going toe-to-toe with Tanji and Blackwell. That was your only chance at winning because you weren't going to grab rebounds. You weren't going to out rebound Wisconsin today. Not that they're a great rebounding team, but you're just outmanned. You're again, Ben Hummerkaus was your only healthy big. The only chance you had was if Will Riley and Kasparis went toe-to-toe with Wisconsin's 2-star wings. Didn't even give him a chance. Will Riley had a good game. Kasparas Jakucionis did not. And again, I like Brad, but that's a question that I would want. That's a conversation I want to have with him. I want to hear what his justification is in that post-game press conference. What more does Will need to do to get into that starting lineup? Maybe you're worried about, hey, offset the two. That way, you're always going to have either KJ or Will on the floor at one time, and you don't have to sub them both out at the same time just because you're so depleted at that point and there's so little scoring power left, especially if you assume that Visic wasn't going to play. But again, it in a game like this, what was the game plan to win? There was, once Visic was out, because Visic could have eaten against Wisconsin, a healthy Visic. If you guys watched Rajiv from Bucky Report Locked On Badgers, he said the same thing. They struggle with bigs, but we had none. Ben Hummerkaus was our only big, and he's big simply because of his height, 6'9". He doesn't play like a big. So we had to play some sort of playground basketball. And the fact that you did not start Will Riley, I meant to say that in the first segment, and DGL, who, imagine DGL scored 17 points today in 26 minutes. He had a fantastic second half. Imagine if we had that energy at the beginning of the game. Would we still have lost? Probably. That's not the point, though. The point, there's a very few variations of game scripts I can think of in this game with the guys that we had gone that Illinois is going to win. But you still have to give them a chance. And to me, your two best players from this game didn't even start this basketball game. And it's not because they didn't deserve to start. You started a guy who hasn't played in, 3-4 games, in Trey White. And Jake Davis, who has never started a game in his career at Illinois that I can recall. Like, those are bench players. Trey White deserved to play 15, 20 minutes. Now, he didn't do much today. But I think he's one of those, he might be mentally checked out at this point. We're going to have to talk about that maybe in a future episode. But Will Riley, getting his start today could have been a huge boon for this basketball team. Okay, I'm getting frustrated. I forgot I was supposed to get to some of your guys' thoughts. Check It Out says, this year is a scratch. You know what? I still haven't given up. This is, I know, you guys just probably think I'm silly. This team today, Wisconsin's a good Big Ten team. Illinois, if they were healthy, I think, honestly, would have absolutely competed against Wisconsin. I think I predicted in the pregame that Illinois was going to win. And I feel confident in that pick. Obviously, I didn't know about the Visic news until about 2 hours before, which, by the way, again, I'll mention again, if you're in the Discord, if you're in the Locked On Discord, the link is in the description. You knew about this as soon as I found out. 2 hours before, and this was way before the availability report came out and all that kind of stuff. So I warned everybody, hey, Tommy's sick. And once the news became official, I found out he didn't travel with the team. The guy's been throwing up for 36 hours straight. Nolan Brooks says they'd rather send a bedridden Tommy out there than just give Trey or Booth any minutes. Yeah, I would, Nolan, that's a fantastic point. Kerry Booth, the guy who Brad Underwood name dropped himself, we all thought that, at least he'd get 10, 15, 20 minutes. If Kerry Booth can't get on the floor in a game like this, how bad is he? This guy started 19 games for Notre Dame last year. How bad is Kerry Booth that he can't find 15, 20 minutes on the floor when you have zero bigs? Morez is out. Tommy is not Tommy. How can you not buy a couple minutes here and there? All those, I know there are memes and whatnot about, our savior, Kerry Booth, but I was shocked by that. At least try something a little bit different. Again, it's just, I don't know. It's what a misfire that Kerry Booth was. Kerry Booth was one of the reasons that we all said, or a majority of us said, this team is so incredibly talented. Former 4-star, started 19 games as a freshman for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Apparently, this guy just stinks. And I apologize if there's anyone from the Booth family watching this. This is obviously not a fit. I'm sure he's going to be playing somewhere else next year. Brandon says this team will never be healthy. It's tough, Brandon. I'm struggling at this point, trying to think back to a team that had this many things just go wrong. Daryl says, not sure I've ever seen the wheels come off a season like this before in an Illini season. Heartbreaking. Rajiv, appreciate you stopping by. Again, he's had him on the preview show. Rajiv says, you match up extremely well against us. No, we do not want to see you in the tournament. Czar says, I think it's pretty delusional to think we match up well with anyone at this point. Yes, correct. If we're going to have 3 guys out puking and our star player not showing up, then we probably don't match up well with a lot of these teams. Let me get to more of your thoughts after this. Sorry about my rambling. SDR is going to have his night again. This is an absolute abomination. The team is clearly let these guys and get healthy the season over. It is what it is. Fans are being selfish. I want the guys to be healthy. Brandon says you can play small ball, just not drop coverage. Caitlin, I feel you here. She says this team is so ridiculously cursed. I can't even be mad at these losses anymore when they are so sick and injured. That's what I'm kind of saying, right? Like, the Michigan State loss hurt more. The USC loss hurt more because the lack of effort against USC. This one, you had guys trying. Everyone out there who could give an A effort gave an A effort, except for the one guy who we needed that A+ effort from. Kasparas, I'm sorry. I know I keep bringing up his name, but I can't imagine any of you guys disagree with me here. I keep repeating myself. In the game where we needed him to be the best player on the court, he chucked the ball 3 times. Tell me how that happened. Turnover after turnover, check it out, says. It's out of pocket. Gamer says, Boswell going to transfer? I mean, I can see it, right? But it's one of those things that, would you want a senior Kylan Boswell back? Honestly, the answer for me right now is probably yeah. But you know what? Why? It's because I don't want to go through a complete roster turnover again. I do think that players do get better in certain environments in their second season there. And while Kylan's not going to be a star player that maybe some of us hoped that the homecoming kid would eventually become, I still think he's a plus player. Should he come back as a starter? I'm not so sure about that. But at this point, I just don't want to replace 10 guys on the roster like we just did, because I think today is another example of where you can see, like, you might be able to replace the talent, but you can't necessarily replace the leadership. And right now, that's what this team needs, leadership. I hope, by the way, some of you might be watching it already. I hope Brad just goes off. We need a Brad Underwood go off game. Yell at somebody. Because I'm tired of this timid Brad. Ross says, I'm rather worried we are going to be absolute. Sorry, I don't know what that is. Joseph says, Moraz out. Davis puking. Tommy's sick. But the coaching was still horrible. Bring on Ben McCollum. Global says, well, Moraz isn't coming back. It's time to get better. Ben still can't shoot. KJ doesn't match up well against quicker, experienced guards. It is what it is. Ben didn't have a bad game today. 4 for 11, 3 of 6. And you know what? He's one of those guys he was putting forth some effort, and he played decent defense himself. I was watching him mainly because I had a couple bets, player props with him. Thank you, FanDuel. He had a solid game, but again, he's a 15 to 18 minute player at this level. He's not a guy who should be playing 33 minutes like he did today. Guys, we're at 45 likes, 110 people in here. This is not easy. This show is absolutely free, and I don't have to do the post-game shows. I do it because you guys continue to show me such fantastic support, and I love the chat. As much as I don't agree with a lot of you, I still give you guys your room to talk. But the more likes, the more this goes to different Illini fans on YouTube and via the podcast algorithms, all that fun stuff. So I really would appreciate your support if you can hit that like button while you're here. Zara, another guy who probably enjoyed tonight, says it's a poorly coached team, pure and simple. They have zero semblance of an offense. Caitlin says, you're 2 for 2 for comments tonight. Caitlin says, this team needs to be quarantined. Don't let them go to classes in person. Absolutely. Nolan Brooks says we're gassing guys that are too sick to travel with the team, but still play 7 games. There's no way the skill gap to Booth is that far. You know what, guys? I just had an idea. What if this is the long play by Brad Underwood? Stay with me. This team is sick, right? As Caitlin just said. Caitlin, this team needs to be quarantined. What if the long-term play of this team, the strategy of this team right now, is we throw these sick kids on the floor to get the other team sick? And so when that Big Ten tournament hits, when these games at the end, like the games that matter, start mattering, the other guys' players start going down. Maybe that is the ultimate strategy. It's not shooting 3-pointers. It's not out-rebounding the other team. It's getting the other teams in the Big Ten Conference sick, all collectively together, because by then Illinois gets healthy. That's where I'm at this point. Ross is not feeling very confident against Duke on Saturday, and that game, I need to find an excuse not to be on. Let's see what else we got. All right, boys and girls, I'm so sorry. Again, I'm sick. I keep coughing. My throat is very dry. I'm going to have to end it here. If you don't mind, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on your way out. Tomorrow, I have a fun college football. We're going to be talking about Illinois' chances in the Big Ten Conference. And, they're getting some national news, guys. I was invited on a national show to talk about the Illini, and I'm using that segment for tomorrow's episode. Tough game, I know. And again, I'm going to be up for another couple hours, so find me on your favorite social media, and Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Message me. I'll be messaging you from bed. It's tough. I know it's tough, but I don't feel as bad about this loss as I felt after other ones. 9-8. I'm telling you, I know a lot of you are very confident that this team is in the tournament no matter what. I would rather hit 19 wins. And this game against Wisconsin was one of the easier ones left on our schedule. Arguably the second easiest behind the next game against Iowa. So I'm nervous. I really am. We'll see what happens. Either way, I hope I get healthy. I hope, for God's sakes, the Illini get healthy. Until next time, I love you guys.